You said you had this experience at 23 already, no?
Yeah.
Could you describe to us how that felt to you?
With enormous difficulty, because there's no words that really can explain it, but I just arrived from Israel, having all my money stolen except for £7.50 in my pocket, and I didn't know where to go, what to do, and I wanted to go to India, but on £7 there was no possibility. So I was just sitting on a bollard top by the quayside. I watched the sun go down over the sea, and suddenly I had this very weird feeling of a ghostly hand creeping up the back of my neck, and all my hairs stood up, and it was like a liquid brain was being filtered into my brain. Oh. And immediately my consciousness appeared to go out across the ocean, across the land, in every direction. And in seconds, I found myself everywhere in the universe at the same time. And it was like I had the eyes of a fly with 1,000 lenses, and I could see and experience everything that was going on. And then I realized I was everything that was going on. And I thought, oh my God, this is what the priests blithely talk about God, having no notion whatsoever. And I realized that everything in the universe was only made of consciousness, and there wasn't anything else. And afterwards I discovered, 50 years later, quantum scientists were just discovering the same thing, that the universe was a great thought. And that's what coloured my whole existence from then on. It was like the morning of the universe, waking up. My eyes were like diamonds. I could see the soul quality of every person that I came to. And I was on the path, not even knowing what the path was. And during my year of travelling down Africa, my body started to reject blood foods, fish, eggs, alcohol, tobacco, and that was it by the time I got to South Africa. So if you're going Om Triambakam Yajamahe, that's not mantra. Yeah, you have to do it the way I'm showing you. Yeah. Your brain cell, then it's not mantra.
Okay. So how do we do it? By keeping our mouth a bit closer, no? Like it can't be too open.
Yes, when I'm teaching people to chant Om, I say, make your tongue floating. If you're just going Om, and then you drag your tongue back to block your throat, you Om. Notice the difference immediately. It's resonating everywhere in your...
So the tongue to the back, yeah?
Yeah, just the back of the tongue, blocking the throat. And that makes the sound go up into your nasal passages and down again.
And do you make it convex, the tongue, like this? Or like this? Like this?
No, it tends to turn up at the
tip.
Like,
We're just talking about whirling. His father's from Iran, and I said you spent time with the whirling dervishes. The dervishes?
Yes.
You spent time with them. But where was that?
That was in Turkey.
It was in Turkey.
You're from Iran.
Yeah. His dad, yeah.
I lived a month with the Shah of Persia, who was deposed.
Really?
Yes, Hashematullah Sultan. Yeah. He was a secret Sufi leader.
Yeah.
The Turkish Sufis sent me to him, and I stayed with him for a month.
In Iran?
in Iraq, in Tehran.
Really? And what, he got ousted? He was put out?
Yes, he was, what's the word?
Overthrow or whatever?
Well, he was thrown out, so he was under house arrest, but I was able to stay with him.
Really?
Yeah.
And was that for the Sufi, you were like studying the Sufi, tradition at that time?
Yes, because I was living with the dervishes in Konya, in Turkey,
Yeah.
and they sent me on to him.
Wow. Wow.
And, well,
And did you practice whirling for some time?
sorry?
Did you practice the whirling?
Oh yes, they actually, Suleiman Dedi, who was the head of the Sufis in Konya, he took to me like a long lost son, and they dragged me into the dance. They showed the secret dances they don't show in public, and they dragged me into the dance, and I had a mystical experience of being in the middle of the cosmos. It was incredible.
Wow.
Because they had this syncopated rhythm which goes, and then they had somebody playing the flute, and then somebody on a drum, somebody on something else, and one group was saying Allah, Allah. Another group was saying Allah, Allah. Another group was going Allah, Allah. Another group was going Allahu, Allahu. And all this syncopated rhythm created something in my head and in the dance, and it was amazing.
Wow. So James and Djamal are both yogis and musicians, and so many connections. And I've told them a few of your adventures. And your family's originally London as well, yeah?
Yeah, East London.
So they taught me the chant, the azan, from the temple, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allah, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Muhammadan Rasulillah, Muhammadan Rasulillah, Hayya ila salah, Hayya ila salah. La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah.
Wow. I remember hearing that one time in Dubai, and I had a mystical experience. Just listening to it, wow, it was so powerful. So powerful.
Worship, to the higher force.
James was asking about the Gandalf's garden, because his family was in East London.
Yeah.
Where was Gandalf's garden?
It was in Chelsea, in London.
Okay.
At the far end of the King's Road.
Yeah.
In fact, somebody just sent me a video of Gandalf's garden.
Really?
Yes.
Was this the BBC interview?
Yeah, BBC. Well, they did two interviews, one of Gandalf's garden and the other one called Still Crazy After All These Years, 10 years later, for all of those of us who hadn't dropped out and was still doing the same work.
Wow, okay. What year was that, Gandalf's garden? Was it
78 until 71.
Wow.
And then I set off for India.
Mm.
Should be ready now.
Yes, it's good. Okay. I will serve.
Thank you. Any stories about Neem Karoli Baba? Neem Karoli Baba.
Neem Karoli Baba.
Yes.
You met him?
Yes, twice.
Oh, there you go.
No.
You
met him?
He asked, yeah, I was in his ashram. And
Really?
he asked me all about my life and what I was doing. And then I went away for 10 days and I came back again and he asked me all the same things again. So he'd never seen me before.
Oh.
Wow.
What did he ask you? Remember? What you remember? What he asked?
No, just about my life, what I was doing, how did I get there. I told him about Gandalf's garden and all the research I was doing about the gurus and ashrams, so I could write the book.
Yeah.
seeking the master.
Lovely.
He would take LSD and have no effect on him whatsoever.
Crazy. Wow.
Carlos Castaneda.
Yes, great stuff, but I didn't meet him.
Yeah. Did you explore that? Did you explore that a bit in your life, or general sorcery, or
No, not really, because because I had cosmic conscious occur to me when I was 23, that I had this global understanding of everything in the spiritual world, as it were. And Castaneda is fascinating, but it is not spiritual. It is more psychic, psychological, earthbound, earth spirits, plant spirits, and it's not so up there. But I appreciated Castaneda's writings. My guru's up there.
Yeah.
You met Ramana Maharshi.
Have I?
Did you meet Ramana Maharshi?
Last, no, he died when I was 10 years old.
Yeah.
But I was with his leading disciples who were also emancipated, and so that was a great privilege for me.
And you did the magazine there in Ramana Ashram, yeah?
Yeah, yes. You know, the Mountain Path magazine, run by the ashram, was created by Arthur Osborne, and after he died, his wife Lucy carried it on for several years, and she was desperately looking for somebody so she could retire, somebody who could write like her husband Arthur Osborne and had the same perceptivity, and she decided I was the ideal candidate. So I wrote the editorials and lots of other things in the magazine. I had old Indian professors sending me stuff with atrocious English, and I cleaned it all up and rewrote the articles. And the professors were really chuffed because it looked like they were
take credit.
Really. And anyway, it turned out when she told the the director of the ashram, the president, that she had found somebody to take over the magazine, he was mightily annoyed, and he said, "If you stop the magazine, I'll cut off your electricity, and I don't want any more Europeans editing our magazine." I mean, he didn't have a magazine until a European Arthur Osborne created it. So then there was an Arji Barji, and Ganeshan, the son of the president, he wanted to work with me, and he was so pissed off with his father, he left the ashram and didn't come back for 2 weeks, didn't speak to him.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, that's the way it is, I'm going to get back on the road. So off I went.
But you left England on the hitchhike journey originally, yeah?
Yeah, I hitchhiked to India. It took me 7 months.
7 months.
Whoa. Which year was that roughly?
71.
Wow. That's very early, you know, before the whole.
Yeah.
And did you know that you was like almost destined to meet Ramana Maharshi, or was that a journey in itself to walk the path?
No, I didn't have, well, actually, I met him interiorly, as you might say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I hitchhiked all the way down Africa from top to bottom, very dangerously, surviving many attacks on my life. And I was in Johannesburg and walking past a bookshop. And ever since my cosmic conscious experience that I had in Cyprus, I was looking for somebody who understood what happened to me and what it meant. And I saw this portrait in a shop window. And I said, he knows, he understands. My psychic awareness had opened like that. As I went in, I bought the book, and there you are. Everything was clear.
Wow. met your mantra in South Africa. You met one of the gurus, the mantra gurus, was in South Africa, yeah? No, what?
Well, yes, he was one, but before that, I already had Sri Ramamurti there. I learned my basic mantra stuff with him. He was a brain surgeon and a heart specialist, and he spoke Sanskrit in his family. That was his national language.
Wow.
And he was a mantra yogi. So I learned all my basic work with him, like the mantric alphabet, for example.
Yeah.
And right in the corner.
Yeah.
So it was Maharaj Charan Singh came from India to South Africa just when I completed my 3 months without these substances, and he was only initiating people who had abstained from meat, fish, eggs, alcohol for those 3 months.
Wow!
So I was
what a coincidence!
One of the very few who were initiated into Shabda Yoga, which is the sound current. He did give me a mantra, but that's gone by the way because I'd had much better mantras since then.
Is there one mantra which you have been doing for, let's say, a very long time, like decades?
Oh yes.
The Gayatri, or is there one specific one?
Yes, but I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah, it has to come to you. Is this how it works? It has to come to you.
No, not necessarily.
No?
If you've got somebody competent who has what they call activated the mantra by constant use, then if he gives you the mantra, then it's working, helping you without you having to do much effort. But no, you're supposed to keep your mantra secret, otherwise people can play with it and make you feel bad, saying, "Oh, my guru's got a better mantra than that," and all this crap.
So it's for you.
But the majority of mantras I teach are all ones which are raising consciousness, raising energy, and anything from Om Namah Shivaya to Om to Sri Ram Jai Ram, Mahamrityunjaya mantra, all these are fantastic.
The Mahamrityunjaya mantra.
Yeah.
I learned that here in Portugal, actually. That's the first mantra I ever learned.
Well, keep it. That's the best one you can get.
Wow, you started the right path.
Yeah, that's the first one.
Wow. Yeah. I was telling them, I was trying to describe how you talk, like most people are just like singing mantras.
Yeah, they're singing. They're not chanting.
Yeah.
They're doing devotional singing, not mantra. But I've been at pains to teach many yoga groups. You are not chanting mantra. This is mantra. I'm teaching.
What's the difference then?
Well, with singing, you can get Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah. It's lovely if you like bhajans, but if you're going to do mantra, you have to intone, nasalize the sound, make it reverberate in the brain cells and down the sinus nerves, and by that it will take it all down to your skeletal form and activate the chakras. Singing Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, like that. It's a much deeper, and the way I teach it is with the breathing mechanism in between every chant. You breathe out and in, and that I can get people into samadhi state within 1 hour.
And Richard went for the first time, didn't he? Richard went to do mantra with you recently. From the paper.
Oh yes,
and he was amazed. Yeah, he knows you for a long time, and he's never done it.
I mean, the CEO of the newspaper. He's in his head all the time.
Yeah.
He's rambling, he's wheeling and dealing and doing everything possible.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to come to the mantra, but his girlfriend insisted he came.
She wanted to go. Okay, interesting.
So she pulled him in. And he was absolutely gobsmacked. He sat there for 20 minutes afterwards, stoned.
Go on.
Oh, that's amazing. So Sina brought him.
Yeah.
Ah, okay. Amazing.
I'm always sharing what I know. I'm not laying any trip on anybody. I'm just saying, you know, if you're interested in this, this is the way it goes.
Yeah.
And some of the gurus that would not have been their intentions, I think.
Oh, some gurus are
Yeah.
the pits.
Yeah.
Egomaniacs,
Yeah.
controllers.
Yeah.
You get any guru who want to control you or tell you what you must do, or is very grim-faced, run a mile.
Yeah.
And you've been a sadhu as well, no? For a while? A sadhu?
You were a wandering sadhu.
For a while?
Yes, 3 years I was a wandering sadhu with a loincloth, turban and begging bowl.
How was that experience? Was it like essential in your path?
It was tough. It was really tough. Sometimes I wouldn't get food. Sometimes I would get more than I could handle. I remember some urchins dragged me into a village that was just one track with some mud huts on either side, and they proudly put me on the tea table. Now, before the tea boy got some grimy rag, made all the dirt into very interesting patterns, then sat me down on the table, and they said, "Tell us something, Swamiji. We are ignorant people. We don't know anything." I said, "What can I tell these people? What would you like to know? How do you like our street? Do you have square rooms like we do in your country?" So I tried to tell them some parable about fish in the ocean, which went completely over their heads. And, I was starving, and I'd been out in the heat of the sun all day, and I was tottering. I was getting migraines, and so eventually, I think it must have been 11:30. They cleared a gaggle of old grannies out of the corner of a room and put me down to sleep there. And I was just dropping off to sleep, and then all the villagers came in with food I didn't want at that point. I just wanted to sleep, and I had to get up and eat it.
Wow. And did you choose? You chose to do that, or was that some? How did that come
Yes.
as
I wanted to see what the life of a sadhu was like, and it was like in Africa. I wanted to see how I could survive 3,000 miles, 5,000 miles from home with nowhere to live, no money, no food, no anything, and see my capacity. Can I survive?
And obviously you proved it.
Yes.
Numerous times, huh? What was the one Angelo always asks, my son always asks, that's the one he remembers the most about, you holding on to the top of the train, going through, every time he comes he asks, because that's his favourite one. You tell him that story.
Yeah,
that was in Africa, yeah? Or was it India?
Which one?
I know you have two. I don't know, which was the one?
Yeah. The travel on top of the train across the Sudanese desert was the first time.
Yeah.
Because the train was so jam-packed, you couldn't possibly get in there. So there was a load of people climbing on the roof. So I thought, well, if they can do it, so can I. So up I went. And but the roof was curved like this, and the train was running the whole night, and I had to try to sleep like this on this curvature thing. It was terrible. And then the next day, being baked by the sun, the skin was cracking black. And we came into the middle of the desert where there was a some machinery with water for the engine, and the engine stopped like a dum dum dum, and some guy sitting on the edge of the carriage, he fell down, and the train ran up his arm and split it in two.
Oh, wow.
But I was too far gone to bother. I just needed water on my head. So,
Wow.
till I got to Khartoum.
And they started calling you they started calling you the Indiana Jones of yoga.
Yeah, the Indians
come
of
up with that?
yoga, they
Who
call
come up
me.
with that?
That's a nice name.
But
Who came up with that one?
in India, having just come back from Nepal, there was a train strike, and there was only a skeleton crew of trains running because there was a strike. And I wanted to get to Hardwar for the Kumbh Mela, if you know that.
Yes.
And because my guru from New York was coming to the Kumbh Mela, and I wanted to meet him. And but I had to go in a 300-mile circuit, changing trains in order to get to Hardwar because of the poor service. And I had to lie on platforms every night with thousands of other people stepping on me or over me with their goats and their chickens and God knows what all. The last station I came into, there was no possibility of buying a ticket. And the last train was not coming in until 10:30, and there was about 2,000 or 3,000 people wanting to get on this train, which was already jam-packed by the time it came in.
Wow.
I mean, if you've seen Indian trains at normal times, that was nothing compared with this, the last train to Hardwar. And they were carrying people and putting them through the windows, piling them up like sardines. And I had this big rucksack having come down from the Himalaya, and I was buffeted right down to the engine, to the first carriage, and there was no way I could get on. But I looked round the boiler of the engine. There was a little shelf about that wide with chains. And I saw a couple of people getting on there. I thought, oh my God, if they can do that, so can I. So I put my rucksack on a piece of metal sticking out from the first carriage, and I tied it off, and I turned around, and the ledge was full of people. They said, no room. And the train started. And I couldn't get my rucksack off. So I was trying to untie my rucksack and running along beside the train, starting off, and suddenly the platform had gone, and there was a 12 or 16-foot drop to I don't know where. So I had to jump onto the bumpers of the train, grab hold of something here and a chain there, 1 foot on the engine bumper, 1 foot on the carriage, and going like this for 25 miles or so until my arms were coming out of the sockets, and I said, this is it, I'm going to die, I'm going to fall. And we came into a station, so I fell off, and I lay there with my hands tetanized like this, and it took me 20 minutes to open my fingers, and the train started. So I jumped up, I sat on my rucksack, cross-legged, hanging on, and for 10 hours through the night, I had red hot coals coming from the engine on me, then going into freezing cold valleys. And of course, by the time we got to Hardwar, I was 9 parts dead with a raging temperature, fever, everything. And that was it. So
it was a great Kumbh Mela.
yeah.
I think this in January next year is Kumbh Mela again.
Oh yes.
I think it's this one. Yeah.
Well, they have one every 4
12,
years, the smaller ones,
Yeah.
and the big one is every 12 years.
Yes, I think it's this one. I think it's this is the 12th year. Yeah.
And when did you decide to come back to the West, and why?
Well, it was just after that actually, because my guru fellow, Dr. Guru, hadn't arrived. So I went to an ashram in Rishikesh where he was friendly with the guru there. And,
which ashram? Which ashram was you staying in?
I think it was called Gita Ashram.
Gita.
Okay. And they put me in a room which was about this deep in dust. Every time I moved, dust came up and I was breathing it all in. I was going, oh my God, I can't handle this. I was coughing up and coughing up. So I said, so they sent for the doctor, and I said, look, I can't breathe with this dust. Can you possibly get me a room that's clean without any dust? I said, no problem. So off he goes. Comes back 2 hours later. He said, well, what we are not understanding exactly is what kind of dust you want us to bring. I said, I don't want any dust. I want some. Oh, we thought you might want some dust from the Ganges or something like that.
The holy dust.
So I went up on the roof to sleep to get some fresh air, but there wasn't any fresh air because the air was so hot. And then there was a dust-laden, sand-laden dust coming all the way down the valley. And in the morning I was covered in silt and it was all falling off me. So I said, no, this isn't impossible. I have to go somewhere I can breathe cool air. So they said, well, you have to go and see the district commissioner, and he's 2 days away up the mountains. So I struggled to get on a bus with my fevers and what have you, and changed buses until 2 days later I got to the commissioner. I said, well, I can't give you a chit to go to where you want to go because the Chinese have built a military road into North India in preparation for an attack or something. So he said, all I can give you is a chit to go to this village just below the snow line, and the head man will give you a donkey and some supplies. You can go up to a dak bungalow up there. So, well, okay, it's fantastic. So I took another bus and I got to this village, and they put me in a dust-filled room again. And I could see through the window the snow line where I could breathe up there. And I said, no. And I started to get visions of clean tablecloths and silverware and the clack of cricket balls on the village green and all this kind of stuff. I said, I'm going to die. I'm going to die here if I stay. And then the head man, he wasn't there. He'd gone to some village wedding over the mountains. So they brought me some food, which was rice with chilies. And of course that blew my head off. The chilies were so outrageously hot. So I said, look, no, it's okay. I don't want any chili. But with no chili, there'll be no taste. I said, there isn't any taste. It's just burning my whole mouth. I can't taste anything but chili. So the next time they brought me with one chili, and I did the same thing. I said, no chilies, but there will be no taste. I said, yeah, okay, bring me without the taste. So next time they brought me rice with a bit of potato and absolutely no taste whatsoever. I thought, a pinch of salt would be all right. So then they put about half a pound of salt in there and it burned my throat just like chilies. So I said, no, okay, that's it. I'm going to collapse. And then I heard he wasn't coming back to this village for another month because he'd gone to another wedding somewhere else. So I said, right, I've got to, maybe if I can get down to Muz Murray, it's on the way down the mountains where the English people used to go in the summer because it was too hot. So I could breathe there. So I hitchhiked a trot down, and the road to Muz Murray had a landslide, and I couldn't go there. So the only place I could go was back down to Rishikesh, where I'd come from days before. And I arrived at the ashram gate just at the time my guru arrived. And I said, now I see why I'm forced to come back.
It's the first time you met your guru? That was the first time you met your guru? No.
No, he came to my Gandalf's garden in London. That's where I learned the first mantra with him. So I wanted to see him again. And unfortunately, he considered himself an acupuncturist, which he proceeded to deal with my fever, by sticking needles in my ankle, in my knee, in my thigh, in my wrist, here, and one here, which killed me. And there are certain places on the human body where you can die instantly from acupuncture. And by accident, he found one.
No.
And
What
I
happened?
could feel from this needle death spreading out across my head. And my jaw locked. And I said, you better take this needle out, otherwise I'm going unconscious. And I'd gone. And luckily he caught me before I hit the floor, or all these needles would have gone
right on
into
there.
me. And I found myself crossing a bridge across the universe. And I didn't know how I got there, or even where I came from.
That's it.
Jeez.
And my mantra came into consciousness, and I started to repeat it, and I felt it bringing me back down into my body. And as I entered my body, I heard the doctor shouting, quick, get the electric shock machine, his heart stopped. I said, it's okay, I'm coming back.
Not finished it.
He said, oh my God. He said, I was so happy to hear your voice. Another few minutes and I would have had to throw your body in the Ganges. I said, with gurus like you, who needs enemies? And that was the end.
Yeah.
I said, I've got to leave this country before I die.
So, and then you went back to England then, or where did you go?
I took a plane which landed me in Paris, where I met two charming American girls asking me where I came from, and I said, oh yes, I was in India visiting the gurus. And they said, oh, we met a guru in India. What was his name? Maybe you know him. Swamiji. Yeah, I said, maybe I did meet him. So I think then I went back to England at that point.
Yeah. Because at that time you'd written a book. It's now in print now. You'd written a book telling people
Yes, then
all
I
this
wrote Seeking the Master, about all the ashrams and what you could find there.
Well, so that was in the 70s, or
Yeah, that was late 70s. It wasn't published until 1980 or 84 or something.
But then it was out of date, wasn't it? Because all the gurus went and died, didn't they? And messed up the publication.
Yes, they did. Very inconveniently went and died on me, which is not at all kind.
When I was in Rishikesh, I stayed in the Master Shivananda ashram.
Yes, well, Gita Ashram was across the river on the other side.
Yeah, almost directly.
Yes,
Yeah.
When I was there, the bridge was closed, and so I had to walk 3 miles down to a pontoon across the river, carrying my 80-pound rucksack with a fever, and then walk a couple of miles back up to the ashram, where they would not allow me to stay until I get a chit from the guru who was in the Kumbh Mela. And I said, okay, I'll just leave my bag. I've been on the train all night, I've got fever. I said, no, you can't leave your bag without a chit from Guruji. So I had to fight my way all the way back and fight my way on the train to Hardwar and go to find the Guru, who I didn't find him until 1 o'clock in the morning.
Can I ask? Just a question came to my mind. What is your opinion on celibacy?
What?
Celibacy.
What about it?
What's your opinion or approach? Or...
I don't like it. No, I've got a whole article about it in one of my books, saying, look, the ancient Hindus didn't have any qualms about celibacy. You see all the erotic sculptures in the temples. The rishis had their wives or their consorts in the jungle. They were sexually proficient, if you like to say, and then there was tantra and all that. So I don't mind if the gurus have their dalliances on the side, as long as they're open about it. So it's their prerogative. They live lonely lives, so, sometimes they need a companionship. But then people go over the top, like Rajneesh or Osho, he became. But I was backstage, as it were, with the majority of gurus, and I knew what was going on with most of them.
You knew Osho as well, no?
Only on very rare occasions, unfortunately.
How do you feel about him? Do you feel that?
Sorry?
How do you feel about him in general? Is it like, could you identify with his approach, or would you say like that's too over the top in Osho's case? Like also not only like the sexual things, also the wealth, and what's your opinion?
I'm not.
About Osho, what was your impression of Osho or Rajneesh?
Well, I liked his charisma very much, but I marked him as a fox right away, and he wasn't so honest, but he was honest with me because he knew I could see exactly where he was, and he said, sometimes it gets to be a drag being a guru. He said, I've set all this up, there's nowhere else I can go now. And I said, yes, I've noticed that sometimes you don't even answer the question that the students ask you. And he said, well, if I haven't got the answer, he said, I talk and I talk and I talk until they've forgotten what the question is. And I said, look, Socrates, in this assembly of the elders, when asked a question, he said, I don't know the answer. And the elders were so gobsmacked that he had so little ego, he could say, I don't know something. And Rajneesh said, well, look, I'm the guru, I'm supposed to know everything, so I just talk.
Yeah. And what was the other thing you'd said?
Oh, yes, the other thing. I said, well, according to the papers, with all these pregnant American chicks that have tantra with you, you're obviously not a celibate. So he looked at me very slyly. He said, I have had more women than any man on this planet. Oh, good for you,
So-
sunshine.
Wow. And this was still Rajneesh. He wasn't known as Osho at this time. This was Rajneesh, yeah?
Yeah, he was Rajneesh then because he was
Yeah.
still a teacher.
Yeah.
But he was a new broom. He made a lot of interesting things, sweeping away all the old stuff in all the different traditions. So I appreciate him for that, but not for his character. He was a bit of a Gurdjieff like that.
Mm. And Krishnamurti as well, you knew him as well?
Oh yes, I knew Krishnamurti very well. I used to have tea times with him.
He strikes me as a delightful man. Krishnamurti. He strikes me as a delightful man.
What kind of man?
Delightful.
Yes and no. He was very crispy as well. He couldn't stand being with people for too long. He got tense and he had to get up and go out and breathe, things like that. And sometimes he was very petty, I found. But his wisdom was wonderful, but he had his failings like everybody else.
Sure.
Like he was having sex with his manager's wife for 25 years on the quiet.
Every time. Is there any like
Ramana?
Well, of course, yes.
Okay.
It seems to be like it's the only
Real deal.
one. There's no word.
No.
Other than him, especially if they have any kind of interaction with the West, it seems like without
Yes,
a doubt.
yes, it's free for all then.
Yeah, because the
And
piracy and
they're so repressed with their traditional attitudes. As soon as they get to the West,
It's like-
wow.
wow. But do you think, like you said, like the wisdom of Christian, like they obviously brought gifts, but they obviously had these. Do you think does it take away from the gifts that they brought if they are? They obviously brought some gifts to people as well. These people that brought these things.
Oh yes,
It's
of
like
course.
you
yes,
take the rough with the smooth, or
I'm
how do you
saying,
think about it?
listen to what the teaching is and follow it if it strikes you in the heart.
Not the
Don't
teacher.
worship the messenger. You don't sit down and worship a signpost saying, go this way. No.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. I think sometimes we have to get a signpost to put us in the wrong direction to find the right direction as well.
Yeah.
I think if you hadn't done that, yeah.
Yes, when I set off out into the world, I set off to find myself. And when I did, I wish I found somebody else.
And in general, what's your how do you feel about, let's say, psychedelics, power plants? Because these days it's becoming very popular again. How do you feel about these kind of tools?
You were right at the beginning of that, I suppose.
Yes, I was there in the beginning of all this stuff. I took acid 3 times myself, but it didn't change me in the way that the natural mystical experience changed me, and I realise its shortcomings. For people who are intellectual and brain locked, it's very good. And I think ayahuasca can be very helpful for bringing up traumas, emotional problems, and all the stuff that they need to cry out of their system. With acid, it's giving them a new perspective that the world isn't like the way they think it is. So I think it's very valuable for people terminally ill who can overcome the fear of death. So I think judicious use of these things are very valuable. But we're in this the 70s, late 60s and 70s, the freaks just taking it like alcohol, you know. Oh, let's have an acid trip, you know. They're useless. I knew Timothy Leary personally.
Oh, yeah?
Yes. I stayed with him in Switzerland when he was under house arrest. Yeah.
How was he?
Oh, lovely, absolutely charming, childlike, and still taking acid, which he calls a sacrament. He was a great fan of my community, Gandalf's Garden. And so that's why I went to see him on the way to India. And I stayed 3 days there with him.
But he paid a high price, no? They really went after him and took everything away, you know? And in the 60s, the government tried to really go for him once he did those experiments, no? And he lost everything, no? Like several times. I think he was in jail as well, no?
Yes, he was. He was I mean, they called him the most dangerous man in the world.
Yeah.
Absolute rubbish. He wouldn't hurt a pussycat, you know.
He was experimenting with LSD, was it? Or
Yes, he was turning all the youth on in America, so they considered that dangerous because we were opening the kids' minds,
very
which
dangerous
they didn't
for some.
want.
Yeah.
So they put him in Folsom Prison, and a group of vigilantes called the Weathermen broke him out of prison and took him to Switzerland,
Really?
where he was put under house arrest. And so I was with him while he was still under house arrest.
Did you meet Ramdas as well? Ramdas?
I only met Ramdas very briefly because we were both on a conference together. But because I had a puncture, I was late, and Oscar, forget what his name was, who was running the show, wouldn't allow me to come on the stage because I was late. And, so I only managed to see Ramdas afterwards very quickly as he was going off.
The acid, was that before the mystical experience or after?
Oh, it had to be afterwards because otherwise I wouldn't have been invited to the conference.
Yeah.
Because I was invited to conferences all over the world because of my vision.
Yes. Wow.
So I used to be called the Ramdas of UK.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that BBC interview was good. It was good. Like the interview was good. That BBC interview.
Yes.
The tone, apart from the way he spoke on one side, so you just sit around doing nothing all day. But other than that, the questions were quite good, and the tone was.
Yeah. So the second one I just received. They're using parts of the clips from that,
Right.
but then they're interviewing me again
10 years later.
10 years later in my cottage.
Did you post this as well? You posted
I was trying to do it today, but it wouldn't take. He kept going round and round, you know.
Oh, yeah. Text Samsara again.
It was going for half an hour and he never took.
Yeah.
So I'll have to try again tomorrow.
Yeah, that was good. Because you were wanting to see something about the Gandalf's Garden. I can show you that video. Yeah.
Please.
Finish that.
Yes? Any more for you guys?
Yeah, no.
Right, I know.
It tastes amazing, yeah.
It's very good, yeah?
Yeah, it tastes amazing, thank you. Really aromatic, you know? Really, really cool.
I think I never asked you before, just when I heard about the Kumbh Mela. What about Babaji? Did you ever hear anything about Babaji or know anyone that
Which
met
Babaji are we talking about?
Oh, I know they say there's a few, but like the Babaji like Yogananda talks about.
Oh, Harikan Baba.
Yeah.
No, I think he died again by that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's another one. I've heard like there's maybe two. Who?
You're not thinking of Sai Baba?
No. Babaji. Yeah. Because I've heard of two, like the one that Yogananda talks about, and then they talk about another one. I'm not sure. I just wonder. I don't think I'd ever asked you about that. If you
No. So after my time, I think.
Yeah. So what do you think about what's happening on the planet now? There's all this uproar, you see it all popping up.
Well, actually, I'm very hopeful if
Yeah?
this Trump fella actually does what he says he's going to
As
do.
always.
It's going to be great for America.
Yeah. That's a big F, isn't it? Because they always say they promise lots of things until they get in there, and then the system does what it does.
Now he's got Elon Musk, he's got Robert Kennedy Jr. in his team, and these guys are going for what they want to do.
Yes.
And they're really good guys.
Yeah.
And so I'm very hopeful that something will come out of this.
Yeah. Let's see. Because it's easy to talk about it, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then you get the votes. But it'll be interesting. It seemed like something has shifted, but whether it changes or not, I don't know.
Yes, well, normally I'm totally disinterested in
Same.
politics, but I've been following what's been going on, and this clown of a woman,
Wow.
Kamala Harris, in 3 months, she never answered one simple question.
That is the
Everything
truth. That's the gift of a
evaded
politician.
and
How
just
you cannot
trotted
answer
out what she'd been rehearsing. Had nothing to do with the question.
And laughing it off, like that was always a response.
Yes.
No?
What are you going to do about the economy? Well, you know, I was brought up in the middle class. And, people used to keep their lawns clean and all this. What the hell?
It seemed like they dialed up the idiocy. It's like they were making fun of people. They were putting people, it was just like, it was just so unbelievable that people...
Yeah, I mean, she didn't have any policy at all. So no wonder people didn't want to vote for her. They didn't even know what she represented.
Yeah.
All she represented is, don't vote for Trump.
Yes.
And every 2 seconds it's Trump, 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 Trump.
Yeah.
And that's all she had to say.
Wow. So you've come through how many? Wonder how many presidents and changes of prime... 84 years, is usually every 4 or 8 years they change. So you've seen a lot of them, huh? You were born. I remember you were telling me your first memory. Your first memory of the bombs dropping.
Of the bombs
in
coming
Coventry?
down, yes, and blowing the windows out of my bedroom.
Wow. 1940, no?
Not a very good introduction to this world,
Sure.
which I suppose led me towards what I've been teaching all these years.
1940 you were born.
40.
1940, yeah. 40. So I was right in the middle. Wow. But I think you worked out the age. You were very young when you had that memory, yeah?
I was 2 years old.
Yeah, 2 years old. Wow.
Yeah.
A memory.
I couldn't believe it when I read the history of Coventry, where all the Nazis were dropping bombs on it. I thought I must have been at least 5 years old
to
remember that. But then I read that they stopped bombing Coventry in 1942. I was 2 years old. And I remember it absolutely, with the searchlights going over, the bombs dropping, the Coventry burning just across the fields from my house.
Oh. Jeez. Crazy. Yeah.
And what do you feel when you, for example, these days there's a lot of occult symbols, no, in the music industry, in the film industry. What's your feeling about that? Like, do you think there are little groups in certain areas of the economy and social life who practice dark arts, or how do you feel about that?
Absolutely. The whole industry is corrupt. The whole Hollywood is corrupt. Disney is absolutely, totally corrupt. It's full of pedophiles. And pedophilia is in their adverts and in their films. You have to be quick to see it, but you see erect penises and all kinds of things. And,
do the people not consider karma? If they, because they probably have some kind of higher knowledge as well, no? But are they not aware that there can be karmic consequences?
Well, they're all getting the chop now.
It's coming. It's coming circular.
What comes around goes around, and they will all be got by Trump's administration. I'm quite sure that they've got so much on their hands at the moment. They're trying to go for the big guys first, and then they'll work their way down to all the other stuff.
Wow. So that's not something new. I think this has always been in these places of power. Yeah?
Yes, it's always
not a
been
new
like
thing,
that. Yes, even in the theatre where I used to work, there was quite a bit of that going on.
Yeah.
And then I worked in films, and I knew about the casting couch business, Harvey Weinstein and all that.
Yeah. Wow.
Do you think like that some of them, they may be reborn and then will feel what the victims felt in this incarnation?
I'm sorry.
Do you think those people that are practicing these dark arts and stuff like that will be reborn and face the...
Undoubtedly, like the Israelis, they were so hated by the Germans and so hating the Germans that they've come back with the Germanic mentality, and they're acting exactly like Hitler and the Germans to the Palestinians. So they got a sort of twisted, and they don't realize that they're creating their karma again for the next generations of Jews who will end up in the same situation again and again. I can't
How do we not
understand how a country deliberately makes enemies of everybody around all their neighbours. I mean, at some point they're going to get clobbered, they're going to get crushed. I mean, it's insane what they're doing.
Wow.
But is there also like a solution maybe to that, as impossible as it looks like now, that the Palestinians and Israelis find a way to make it work and at some point stop the violence?
Yes.
But what do they need to do for that?
But neither side seems to want to do that because they want to conquer more territory. They want to own the whole of Gaza, like they've gone into Jordan and taken over villages and houses and all that, and expelled the Jordanians. There was I saw a video with the Hasidim who had taken over villages in Jordan. He had these bandoliers and daggers and machine guns, and the reporter said, "Where do you expect all these people to go?" No, he said, they can go to Disneyland for and that was their attitude. And it was like that when I was in Israel.
I was going to ask you, when you were in Israel, what year would that be? It would have been 70s or?
73.
73. And how was it then?
Well, at first I thought it was a paradise after the Arab countries I was travelling through. But in fact, they were spoiling for a fight even then. With just across one side of the street was Israeli, and the other side was Jordanian. And they were hurling insults at each other across the way and throwing stones, trying to provoke one side or the other to shoot so they could shoot back. And your mother was a bloody goat. No, your mother was fucked by a goat, and so on. This
is in the 70s as well.
Yeah. So all that, and I saw a lot of racialism, even towards Jews that came from Africa, from Ethiopia, who thought they were the original and only Jews in the world till they went to Israel, and then they got kicked around by the Israelis as undesirables.
Really?
Yeah.
Even today, there's some racism towards them, the black Jewish community.
Yeah. Wow. What do you think this stems from? These this continuous war and where does it come from?
Fear of the other. Unnecessary.
Yeah.
And superiority complex.
Yeah.
They
You
think
can't
they
hurt
are the
someone.
chosen people and they can't do any wrong.
You can never hurt someone unless you feel you're somehow superior to them. Yeah, they have to be below you to. If someone's your equal or they're part of
Yes.
you, you can't. You
If you
can't.
can put somebody else down, you can feel you're on the upper side, and that's really sick. I hope you're not Jewish.
No.
No, sir.
Yeah.
I'm not just slagging off Jews because I have some Jewish friends.
Yeah.
Did you ever explore the Kabbalah approach? Kabbalah?
Yes.
The Jewish mysticism?
Oh yes, she's slightly Jewish and slightly black and slightly Israeli. Well, she's what was it? She's 80% Asian. She'd been Asian for all her campaign, and then suddenly she thought it would be a good idea to be black. So
I know, I mean the Kabbalah, you know, the Jewish mysticism, the Kabbalah, the tree of life. Did you ever explore it?
He was talking about the Kabbalah, the Jewish mysticism.
Oh, the
He said, sounds very similar. They sound the same, but they couldn't get any farther apart. Did you ever explore?
Yes, I did. I found it really excellent actually, and very useful, and the tree of knowledge and all that. It's very similar to the chakras. In fact, the tree of knowledge. I thought that they found out some very similar things, and the ancient Hebrew language has the same impact as Sanskrit in its own way. Yes, I had time for that.
And going back to yoga, like next to the mantras, are there other practices you do, like maybe Shiva Lingam or other things you do?
Yes,
every day?
I was actually initiated by Kumaraswamy in Madhya Pradesh into Shiva yoga, using the stone, and in fact he wanted to cultivate me to take over the ashram after he died, because he knew he was on the way, and he gave me his book Dimensions of Yoga to rewrite for a Western audience. And so I started, when I got back to England, I started to write it, and I wrote 6 or 10 pages of a rewrite. And unfortunately, he died at the time. And I didn't want to stay for 2 years in the ashram under his training, because I had things to do in England. And so I was working on his book, and then he died. So I sent to the head of the ashram, and they told me, do what you want with the book. Swamiji has total faith in you to write it the way it should be written. And so I had so many other projects of my own that for several years I had to forget about it. And then I came back to the book and started to look at it. And then I realized that what I'd written in You Are the Light was years ahead of anything he'd written in this book. So there wasn't any point in trying to rewrite this, because it was so far in the past that it wasn't worthwhile.